Welcome to part 2 of this short video series on refurbishing a Stuart Number 1 model steam engine. In this video I start refurbishing the engine. It may take a couple of videos to cover the refurbishment. I'm planning on a sympathetic refurbishment as I like the patina on the engine. The first task was to remove the valve and oiler from the top of the cylinder. I will be replacing this with a plug later in this video. Next, I removed the top cylinder cover from the cylinder. One of the bolts was not screwed into the cylinder, probably due to a broken tab. I may need to fix this later. I also noticed the gasket was brown paper, so I made new gaskets on the laser engraver. This clip shows the new gasket I had made and replacing the cylinder cover on the cylinder. I then lined up the holes in the cylinder, gasket and cover. I then replaced the bolts that hold the cylinder cover onto the cylinder. This clip shows me tightening the bolts, being careful not to over-tighten and shear them off. I gave the bolt heads a clean with a Scotch-Brite wheel in the Dremel tool. I then installed a plug that I had made from brass hex bar into the top of the cylinder cover where the valve and oiler had been originally. I sealed the plug with Loctite 542. Next, I moved on to correcting the air inlet. The photo shows the air inlet flange that a piece of copper tube had been soft soldered into. The flange was rectangular and not very symmetric, so I removed it, reshaped it and silver soldered a new nozzle onto the flange. This photo shows the new nozzle on the bench after being fabricated. I made up a gasket to go between the nozzle flange and steam chest and installed the nozzle. This photo shows the new inlet nozzle installed on the steam chest. This is a much better arrangement than the original flange and copper pipe. Next, I moved on to inspecting the slide valve and port face of the cylinder. This clip shows me removing the steam chest cover. The nuts and studs holding the chest and cover onto the cylinder were not in the best condition. I'll look in my BA nuts and screws to see if I can replace them when I rebuild the steam chest. With the steam chest cover off, I inspected the cylinder port clearances. This isn't the best view of the cylinder ports, however. I found that the bottom port was getting fully exposed while the top port was being partially exposed as the slide valve moved. I decided to trim the slide valve to equalize the port clearances at each end of the stroke. This clip shows me removing the nut and bolt that holds the eccentric rod to the valve rod. I removed the steam chest from the cylinder and noticed that there was no gasket between the steam chest and the port face. I will reassemble the engine with gaskets on each side of the steam chest. This photo shows the steam chest gaskets that I cut on the laser engraver. I have a workshop techniques video on making gaskets. I'll put a link to this video in the description below. This clip shows the slide valve being trimmed in the mini-mill. I took 20/1000ths of an inch off the length of the slide valve. This will equalize port exposure at each end of the valve stroke. I then polished the slide valve face on a piece of 600 grit wet and dry emery cloth with oil on it. I got the finish on the slide valve face with the emery. I'll leave this video here and continue the refurbishment in the next part of the video series. Welcome to part 2 of this short video series on refurbishing a Stuart Number 1 model steam engine. In this video I start refurbishing the engine. It may take a couple of videos to cover the refurbishment. I'm planning on a sympathetic refurbishment as I like the patina on the engine.